Awesome. Very good. All right, we'll jump on here, wait for a few folks to jump on, and we will get moving and grooving. Okay. It's good stuff. We jump onto our website and show you guys a few things real quick. Okay. All right, everybody. Let's get down to business, as they say in the industry, right? Welcome to One-on-One Live with Coach Blu. Blu Robinson at your service, licensed mental health counselor / therapist, substance use disorder counselor. I'm always confused on which one of those comes first, counselor or therapist. Not that it really matters. Thank you, everybody who's been giving us some feedback on the last One-on-One with Coach Blu. That being the episode that was greatly, documented with the gaslighting issues that we had a question that was submitted. It was a deep dive on gaslighting, and I think it's helped out a lot of people. So jump on there. It's been posted as a podcast now. So if you jump on whatever platform you enjoy, listening to podcasts through, you will find it there. And so that's kind of a cool thing. One thing I've really appreciated is how awesome the response has been to our podcast. And we got some neat things coming up in the horizon. And I want to let you guys know, specifically if you are a Patreon subscriber, and if you donate to Patreon, you are now receiving multiple episodes a week of the Addict to Athlete Recovery Playbook. Little excerpts of what we're going to be teaching in our online recovery program to help you kind of lay the foundation of your addiction recovery, and resources that will be available to you if you choose to join the full recovery program online. I'm going to talk a little bit about that today, get you guys a little bit, geared up to what's on the recovery resource page. And before we do that, though, I want to thank those Patreon subscribers. It really is because of the Patreon subscribers that we have been able to produce this online recovery program. I want to thank our super fans, Jerem Thurston, Holly Davies, Scott Foster, Coach Chris Williams, Brett Frew, Coach Tara Butson. Congratulations, Coach, on completing your Squaw Peak 50-mile ultramarathon, by the way. Steve Riggs, who was a volunteer at the aid station up there at the Squaw Peak 50. The Warrior Within podcast and personal development by Sensei KP. Go check out the Warrior Within podcast too, you guys. It's fantastic. And of course, Chelsea Olson, our rookie level subscribers to Patreon. Thank you so much, Kenny Roseman, Earl Dyer, and Joe Jackson. Our pro level subscribers, we've got Gary Thurston, Josh Hansen, and Selena Armitage. Thank you so much. The championship level subscribers, Shad and Freya Robinson, and the whole Robinson clan, and Ron and Dee Loesch, and of course, Tracy Whitby. Thank you all so much for participating and donating to the Patreon. Like I said, the Patreon subscribers are now getting bonus episodes with excerpts of the Addict to Athlete Recovery Playbook. And I'll take a moment right now and show you guys a little bit about what this is. So because of some of the industry that I've been a part of, as has Marissa, we found that there is so much that can be done for so little, I should say. You invest so much into your addiction recovery that we've noticed that there are times when there can be precursors, things that you can, kind of allocate your money towards before you have to make a huge leap into the world of residential and outpatient care. And as we saw this industry and we saw some of the excessive cost that is accumulated through these efforts, I would say slow the process down before you jump in unless it's an emergency. And what I mean by that is the cost is so phenomenal. And sometimes the outcome's so risky that it would be wise for you to explore all options. There are options out there beyond residential care. And sometimes this can be done in a family system. Sometimes it can be produced in what we've created on the online resource page, and getting involved into our Addict to Athlete addiction recovery program. And then if needs be, through the counsel of myself and Marissa and some of the other coaches that we're going to be having work in this industry with us on the online program, we can help you and your family make those decisions on that path. But sometimes it's wise to explore other options first as a more information needed category. And so because of that high cost, and we're talking upwards of sometimes $10,000 to $20,000 a month. Yeah. And the guarantee isn't there that there's going to be success. And you can't guarantee anything. If you ever get on a website and they say we have an 80 to 85 or 90% success rate, move on, because that's not how this works. It's very cutthroat. It's very industrialized, and there's a lot of options out there. So what we've done on Team Addict to Athlete is create our own addiction recovery program, and this will be for individuals that might need a starting point, right? Marissa, we've got it under our resources page. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Is my mic on?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yep.
Or my ear? I don't think my
your earplugs are.
Right.
I'll plug those in right now.
Okay.
But why don't you explain a little bit about what this is going to look like?
Go back up to the resource drop down.
Okay. Resources. Oops.
Yeah.
Doing that. Resources.
Scroll down to personal training.
Personal training. Okay.
And those are our options.
Explain that to the listeners who don't have video on right now.
All right. So we have a couple different choices. We have a substance abuse screening and assessment that you can take. Then we also have some monthly programs. We have the semi-pro, which is, I think it's $37 a month. And the pro, which is $97 a month. There, I can hear me. And the champion level, which is $199 a month.
Absolutely.
So
these are going to be, these are going to be, we'll start here with the championship. So if you subscribe to the championship online addiction recovery program, what you'll be receiving is going to be what?
So we add stuff to this all the time, but it's going to be utilizing video conferencing, educational videos, and also online like Zoom groups. So we will have group counseling. It's take at your own pace. It's flexible. It can be done anywhere, anytime. You will be able to have the Addict to Athlete recovery playbook, all the educational videos, personal recovery training, and then we will be having a 24/7 online recovery like community chat so that you can reach out for support, as well as, because we have a partnership with Dr. Paul Jenkins, we are able to, on this program, utilize all of his educational content, which he has, which is enormous.
Vast.
Like I can't even list all this on here, but he has everything on his Live on Purpose Central. So he has a positivity power up, which is, I think, a 7-module course on like positive psychology and how to change your thinking. He has My Anxiety Answer, which is all on anxiety. He has positive relationships track. He has a suicide prevention, positive parenting, and probably dozens, I would say dozens more.
Yeah.
And those are the same thing. It's video content, text, audio, all of these things. And so this really all together is, for $199 a month, this is phenomenal stuff.
Each week, we'll also be having the online counseling groups with myself, and we'll be running those as open office hours, to where if you guys have the time during a lunch break or whatnot, you can jump on. We can have an addiction recovery conversation, do some counseling, some guidance, some coaching, and get you into the position of taking control of life.
And the cool part about this is the very first people in get Blu to themselves.
Yeah.
So, if you're one of the first 3 or 4 in, your group is going to be 3 or 4 people. As it gets bigger, we're going to have to, we plan to expand and utilize some of our other recovery
Certified
coaches
addiction recovery coaches
and things like that, and things will get busier for us. But right now is really the time to jump on, because you will be able to have a lot more attention and care from myself and Blue.
Absolutely. So each of these realms are going to have a different, I guess, degree of what's offered. The pro level is the online recovery program is going to consist of the playbook, the educational content, the weekly meetings with me, and then right down here to the semi-pro, which is going to be simply the playbook, the videos, the audio, things that some of the Patreon folks are receiving right now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a cool thing. And then, of course, since it's here, we might as well talk about it. Our Addict to Athlete Certified Recovery Coach training is up and ready for anyone who wants to invest and involve themselves in the recovery community.
Yep. So this is a great 40-hour plus training that covers everything you need to know and understand about our philosophy, but also about working in the substance abuse addiction recovery field. You don't need to be somebody in recovery.
Nope.
It can be just an educational course if you'd like to take it, but you can also take it to start your own Addict to Athlete chapter. And you could also utilize it to be able to start your own business as a recovery coach.
Which we have several that have done so. And don't let the sticker price scare you, because there's a lot of fundraising efforts you can do. In fact, here coming up the end of this week, beginning of next, we're going to be doing an open fundraiser for fundraising to try and do some donations to get some of our rural, communities trained and certified, so that we can start having some rural communities change their own, neighborhood and community into recovery programs. And I'm really looking forward to this. There's a lot that can be done with this. The reason why, too, we charge that much is because it's serious. You are taking a very professional course. Yeah. And, I've seen coaching programs for $5, and I'm like, ooh, gads.
Cost a lot more than that.
Absolutely. As a certified recovery coach under Addict to Athlete, you have all the perks and assistance from us to become a chapter of Addict to Athlete.
We do continued trainings. We have a Facebook group where you can ask questions, and there's a lot of really helpful things that we do to help guide you along. So it's not just take this course and run. We spend a lot of time being able to back the individuals up that have certified. I think we have about 24 currently that are certified around the country.
Absolutely. So it's kind of a neat thing that we're offering here, and it is ready. It is ready for you. It is open. And if you subscribe, if you invest there, you're going to get the starting line of recovery right there. And granted, if along that path, we come to the consensus, you involved, that this isn't the path that you should take, we'll be very honest and open with you to get you into the place or the resources that you need.
And this is why it would be good for most people to take that screening and assessment, and I can give you recommendations when that's complete on what you should do, but it's not necessary. But that the addiction screening and assessment is also good to be able to, for court ordered requirements, for employee, like if you've had a dirty UA for work and you need to have a screening and assessment, or anything like that, whether it's even marriage and divorce kind of a thing, I can get those completed for you as well.
Absolutely. And if Addict to Athlete's online recovery program isn't going to work for you, we will definitely point you in the direction and teach you how to do the research to find one that does. Because we are very, separate from that community, we do not have any program that we're 100% affiliated with. Yeah. And so we don't make those judgment calls of contacting specific treatment centers or programs. We teach you how to do the research to find what's going to be best for you.
And I think in most cases, if you're going to get a substance abuse assessment, I would really do, if it's not with us, go with somebody who is not affiliated with a treatment center, which is really hard to find. I'm not sure there's a lot of independent assessors, because otherwise they just tell you what you need so that you'll go into their program and they can get money back. So I don't know if it's really as accurate as it should be. Yeah. It's sadly.
It is. It's one of those things where, obviously they want it to feed the program too. So Anyway, go check it out. Go navigate the website. That's on the addictathlete.org website. If you jump on there and you navigate over to resources, you can see all the things that are offered. And while you're there, check out all of our podcasts and everything else that you put on there.
Personal training. There's a lot of information on there.
Absolutely. And of course, shoot, if you want to jump on and look at our team store, say you got a race coming up, you want a jersey. We just did the Squad Peak 50 and I saw a bunch of our athletes out there wearing the Addict to Athlete jersey. And from what I've gathered, a lot of them had great conversations with people throughout the race, inquiring about what the team is and then even just commending them because they already know what the team is. So
we have running jerseys, cycling kits, but we also just have regular shirts and hoodies and hats and beanies and some really cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And right now we've got an order coming in with Josh Hansen and his new logos through for the upcoming holiday.
We also have a 4th of July right there at the top, and you'll want to get these because if you want it for the 4th of July, you're going to need to order now.
Order now.
Because they are but they've been behind on shipping. So I love those.
Yeah, these are great. These are fantastic. So thank you, Josh, for all the work that you put in there. I appreciate it, brother. All right, Marissa, I got a message today because on the Patreon subscribing, I guess, episode, I posted the first attribute of the playbook, the recovery playbook, and it was on the erase and replace philosophy, which is kind of the backbone of what we do here on Team Addict Athlete. If you're going to erase the addiction, you must replace it with something of greater value. And we also say things of greater value, meaning more than one.
We really encourage balance.
And I got a response back because I want to be part of this journey specifically for the Patreon folks. We got a response back this morning that said, "Hey, Coach, now I'm not an addict. I'm not sure how I missed all that because I'd probably be a really good one, but I'm still having issues of my past with trauma and with things that have really kind of shaped me to be a little bit more apprehensive, a little bit more reserved, a little bit more stuck." And you and I had this conversation about the erase and replace philosophy doesn't just apply to addiction recovery. No. We talked about it through behaviors, through lifestyles. Let's jump into this because she asked specifically, will this program help me if I'm not recovering from, say, substance? What say you about the erase and replace philosophy, specifically about behaviors and things that we've learned along the way as mechanisms of attempts to help cope?
A lot of our programs, a lot of our educational videos and content are very easily generalized and connected with other things, mental health specific and mental health related. Addiction, everyone has it, really. Let's think about, if doing something compulsively, if it's just being stuck in being triggered by different people that just trigger emotions in you, not even like, they trigger and cause you to have like cravings for, a substance, but they trigger you emotionally, which causes chaos in your life. All of this is very still beneficial.
Absolutely. So let's just say, for instance, like there's been some trauma in the past, right? Mm-hmm. And interesting enough, last night at our meeting, I was talking to an athlete that says, "Hey, I've been following some of your coaching and some of your counsel about using EMDR as a motivator to help process some of my issues, some of my trauma." And he says, "It's working." Awesome. And so that's the cool thing about this is, see, trauma, we've talked about this a million times, addiction, substance use, whatever, choose whatever, I guess, sin you want to. Yeah. It could be pornography, gambling, it could be eating. It could be so many things.
I mean, all of us find different ways of coping with emotional response. As an emotional response. Yeah. Some of them are good and some of them aren't. And it could be, shopping. I know tons of people that do that. Amazon makes it really easy.
Yeah. But when you boil it down, all of those attributes, let's say it's pornography, all of those attributes are there to cover something that hurts, something that's disappointing, something that stung. So it doesn't matter what the mechanism that you're using to cope. It matters what's behind all that. So the erase and replace philosophy, everything we're doing in our recovery program is generalized enough to fit almost kind of like a one size fits all kind of thing, because that's the beauty of the metaphor by which we use the erase and replace philosophy. It's if you're having lifestyle issues that have to do with trauma as a child or as a young adult, and that's bleeding into your adult life, it's making you resistant to build relationships or cautious about the people, places, and things that your lifestyle may require. Erasing and replacing means going back and finding out what that trauma is and erasing it through counseling, through EMDR therapy, through mechanisms of growth and counsel and education, and replacing it with things of greater value. Trusting relationships, experiences, events, all kinds of beautiful things that can replace that. And so it doesn't have to just be an alcoholic or a heroin addict. It could be literally anything that's holding you back. And
it can be experiences. I mean, maybe you had just a really awful experience, and every time you go to that place in the city, you go up to a certain reservoir in the canyon, or you smell a certain scent. I mean, all of that can be very triggering to some, a really bad experience. And all of this can be utilized in that way as well.
Well, and that is huge, because trauma and post-traumatic stress usually gets woke by those kind of things. It's the smell, it's a sound, it's a sight, it's some kind of trigger. And so the erase and replace philosophy, and subsequently the items of the playbook that will follow, will definitely help you get a grip on all this kind of stuff. Yep. It's not going to be easy. Just because it's online doesn't mean it's going to be easy, because there will still be some requirements, and there will still be some some accountability that will be taken through making sure that you're not just vicariously trying to get through the program. Yeah. And so I loved this question because it answered quite a bit, because there are a lot of people out that are struggling, that get nervous about the recovery process of all this. Remember, recovering is healing. Yep. And to be quite honest,
from lots of things, physical, emotional.
And to be quite honest, if it wasn't so universally known, the term recovery, when it comes to addiction, I would never use it, because I'm not a big fan of the word recovery. I don't like it because it implies the fact that we are always going to be hurt.
Well, in most situations, if you're looking at somebody with a broken arm, or you're looking at someone who's just had surgery, yes, there's a recovery timetable, and you have a treatment plan so that you can get through that recovery section. Sadly, in a lot of the addiction world, it has become an ongoing, forever, never will end recovery. That's not how it should be. Recovery means it is a step to get better. It's stepping and doing something to become healed and become whole again, which is very possible with addiction.
Absolutely. And so, when we look at that, and I think, the recovery process eventually leads to healing. That's not a real popular thing in this industry, because the sick keeps our pockets lined. And that's another hard one to swallow that we'll have to tackle one another time. But will this recovery online resource program help you to no matter what it is? Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, if you are aware of Team Addict to Athletes method, you'll realize real fast that we do not talk about, or very rarely do we discuss, addiction in and of itself. We know that you had one. We know that there was problems and turmoil that you faced through it, but we're now moving past that. And now we're getting into the concepts, the core issues, and the things that are going to help you on that recovery process to ultimately heal from it. So it's kind of a cool thing. And that's one thing I think it's kind of put us out there a little bit further, was that we don't focus on who you were. Yeah. We focused on who you're becoming. Yep. Right?
Yeah. And we address more the core issue below the behavior of substance abuse.
Yeah.
Because the substance abuse is just a coping skill.
Absolutely. So that's it's a good question. And again, those of you who have not subscribed to Patreon, go jump on, subscribe.
You can get parts of it.
And you're going to start seeing it in real time. And so those of you who are currently supporting Patreon, brace yourself, because you're going to be getting an abundant amount of the recovery playbook for your, I guess, own interest, for maybe your own path to recovery. And I want the investment. There's been several already that have been reaching out to me because I said, hey, I want to help you on this journey. We'll take care of our Patreon folks first, right?
Yeah.
So you can jump on patreon.com/addictto athlete, pick a tier. It's going to work for you. $2 a month gets you all of that content. Anything above that opens you up for all kinds of cool, merchandise, perks, and all kinds of other exclusive deals, right?
Exclusive stuff.
Awesome. We've got a couple more questions here. I don't know if you have any right off the top of your head. Awesome. So this one came not so much as a submitted question, but more as a in-person, hey, coach, what do you think? And can you discuss this? And it has to do specifically, again, with pornography. And, to don't have it written down, but the cusp of the question was, now that I'm done using, I found that my libido has been so, I guess, just suppressed because of the addiction. I'm having a real hard time with intimate relationships, and adding pornography onto that as a way to try and kickstart any kind of intimate, interactions with my spouse is turning into an addiction in and of itself. And he was asking specifically, what are the dangers? What are the warning signs? Because he feels as though it could almost become a replacement because it's instant access. And I asked him if I could use this on this one-on-one, because I'm sure that he's not the only one. In fact, if you've listened to Agents of Recovery, the other podcast that I'm a part of with Max Hall and Brock Bevel, we talk about some of these issues specifically with men regarding pornography. And so
to clarify a little bit on that question, because some of it was a little confusing to me, is it they have struggled with pornography before, or struggled with substances and now are using pornography?
Yeah, because of the low libido that they experience now.
From substance use?
Okay,
so not from
They've had to utilize, well, not had to, but they
felt like they
fell into pornography as a kind of a foreplay mechanism to a certain degree.
Yes.
And now it's become a substitute for.
Yes. Okay.
And he's asking, what are the warning? What's the warning here? It's a bad one. It's a hard one.
Yeah. Most people in recovery from substances struggle with their male and female. There is a lot of sexual struggles that come when they're in recovery because of other things. They're the chemicals, the brain, and how it's been changed. And a lot of it just takes time. You've got to just be patient. And I know it seems like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to feel this again. I'll never, did I ruin myself forever? No, but it will take time.
Yeah.
And if have that addictive personality, turning to porn to try to fix it is probably not safe.
And there lies kind of some of the issues too, because it's not just the viewing of it; it's all of the emotional, I guess, roadblocks that happen because of it as well. Yeah. It becomes a spiritual kind of a vice where it's like you get that wedge in between you and your spirituality. It becomes this hidden mentality of like, I'm a bad person. And there's interesting things about humans and the sexuality and intimacy that we experience, because it's been taught in so many family systems and it's so taboo because no one speaks about it, that it becomes this very hidden and I guess giant of an issue. And so it's hard to discuss because
a lot of people say it's like an evil thing rather than we have all been created as sexual beings. And so it is just part of who we are. It's learning to utilize it in a healthy manner.
Absolutely. And so realistically, we got to look at the whole picture here and say, okay, so what is the struggle with the intimacy too? Is it a physical thing? Is it an emotional thing? What's causing some of that dilemma? And then it turns into, okay, well, what has the substances done to you that's going, like Marissa said, it's going to take a little while for you to rebalance yourself, to kind of, I guess, calibrate your emotional, spiritual, physical well-being back into a spot where you can start feeling good. Sometimes this is going to take physician intervention. Sometimes it's going to take, some things like diet and exercise. It's interesting to see how many things play into this. I mean, we're talking right down to the food you consume also plays a big role into like this physical health, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Oh yeah.
remember for years you've been tormenting your body with chemicals and with substances and
Well,
with stress.
and with those substances, your brain, you have taught it that very false sense of pleasure. And you've also, because of tolerance, you build up this pleasure sensors and that make your body feel that that's the only things that feel good is when you're clear up at the very top, which is above what most things you feel naturally and sober.
Yeah.
So your body needs to come down to and your tolerance level is going to take time to come down for you to feel pleasure, whether that's sexually or just pleasure in life. A lot of addicts in early recovery just really struggle with like a depression and a malaise because they're so used to being so high that normal life is blah, because they have to give their head and body time to like recalibrate.
Absolutely. And so these things are going to take time. Open communication with your spouse is going to be number one, because this is the thing, because sometimes it's going to take time. And I'm telling you, there's, even though that we're adults, there's still this kind of awkward, I guess, aspect that physical intimacy plays, by which we want it just to naturally occur. But it doesn't always work that way.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to seriously get down into that core communication and say, these are the things that I'm struggling with. This is what I think we should do, and then receive some I guess, open conversation with your spouse about what they're thinking.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it has to move into that realm where it's
Well,
not
a lot
just
of times people try to hold that in because they're embarrassed and they don't want to talk about it or ask for help or say they can't do something that they used to, or, I don't find this pleasurable. Well, is that attack on your spouse? No, it's not. And you've got to be clear with that. But the only way to do that is by talking about it. People want to hide that stuff. And without fail, you're going to continue to guess about yourself and just think you're broken.
Yep.
Your spouse will too, and think that, wow, they don't love me anymore. They don't care about me.
Absolutely.
If you guys aren't open and talking.
But removing that bridge of communication and openness with your spouse, the person that you chose, that you love, and then putting it into a device by which you can call up anything in an instant, is not real intimacy. In fact, pornography and the masturbation, the things that are associated with that, they become so entrenched that it is more difficult of an addiction to get over than any substance you'll ever have.
Yeah.
Because it is so natural. It's a mechanism of self-soothing. It's a mechanism of stress relief. But when we do that and then have that temporary, momentary relief, all of a sudden, boom, it loads another tenfold of stress tons on your back.
Yeah. Let alone it teaches, most porn you're going to see teaches unrealistic intimacy, unrealistic
100%.
relationships. And then not only are you getting that fake there, but you're also being taught and visualizing what isn't real either. And so then when you go back to real life and try to have sex or have a sexual encounter, it's not like what's on the screen, and it never will be. But if that's what you think you're working towards, you'll never get there.
You'll never get there.
Yeah.
And so partially you've got to understand too, just that magnitude of what happens when, like Marissa said, our bodies and minds have been overstimulated with substances to the point where there's a burnout. And so it gets scary. So sometimes some abstinence needs to take place, some retraining of your mind, some open, honest communication, and then some, I guess, personal respect for yourself. Sometimes we think that pleasure seeking aspect of life is for ourselves, but it's not. It's a temporary solution to a long-term issue. Yeah. And, we devalue ourselves when we let ourselves, I guess, get conned into that being the mechanism of pleasure. So it's also a point where you might need to have some professional guidance and help. Yeah. It is one of the most difficult things to talk about. When I moved into my private practice, I got kind of, I guess, out of the world of exclusive like addiction recovery, substance use, I started noticing how much neglect was being given towards people that have these issues, pornography issues, intimacy issues, those kind of things, because that's now a lot of what I deal with. And it's always kind of like, I don't know, it's always kind of neat to have people come in and trust someone enough to talk about some of these real sensitive and sometimes somewhat embarrassing issues when
they become extremely painful.
It does.
Like emotionally and spiritually.
It does. And, you know, there's these things in this new term I've recently been aware of called the dead bedroom. And it's kind of a sad thing that happens because there's one spouse that prefers intimacy to show love, and there's another one that doesn't. And then there's the, do I pressure, do I ask? And then there's this emotional drift. And that's when the pornography gets introduced. And sometimes spouse knows about it, but says, hey, it's better there than with me. And there's so many attributes to this that having just a quick, warning sign, dead end, avoid at all costs, it wouldn't do this justice. Yeah. And so there may be a time when we do a very closed group meeting on this. There's another team that we work with called Husband Material with Drew Boa, who I would highly recommend getting involved with. Drew's platform is growing, and I've been a fly on the wall in there for quite a while, just kind of watching what he's using as a method to help these people overcome this. And it is a lot of support, a lot of spiritual guidance.
There's it's a Christian-based program, but it's really good whether you're Christian-based or not. But if you're not, and that you don't want that, there's a lot of other things out there. There's sex therapists, and there's other kind of ways that you can, and I know there's online educational things as well.
Well, this comment came up because of the gaslighting episode we had last time, and it was also him kind of explaining that he felt like he might have been gaslighting his spouse into this. And he's like, I recognized real quick when I heard kind of the mechanisms of what causes gaslighting that I was doing that to my spouse without knowing it.
Yeah, and I think that happens. I mean, a lot of people believe that somebody that's gaslighting is very methodical and just wanting to cause harm and pain and control, but that's not always the case. Sometimes it has become a maladaptive coping skill because of whatever it is they're going through. So awareness is really good so that they, can maybe change some of those behaviors as well.
Absolutely. Hey, so shifting gears, because this is, this is your time. A question that came into specifically talking about the volunteerism of Team Addict to Athlete and the experiences had. Hey, Coach Blu, still new to the team, but wanted to let you know how awesome it was to be a part of the Squaw Peak 50 aid station. I was excited to get up there and experience this firsthand after hearing everyone's stories from last year. One thing I had a hard time with was when people approached me thanking me for my volunteerism, and then me feeling responsible to downplay their compliments by saying it's no big deal. How do I accept gratitude and thanks without downplaying it by shaking it off? That is a big one.
It happens all the time.
For those who may not know, Team Addict to Athletes, part of our program obviously is health, recreation, and investment into like racing events and things of that nature, whether it's softball, bowling, tennis, trail running, whatever. But more than even that is the volunteerism that goes into this team. And so this came from an individual who hiked up to a place called Windy Pass.
6 mile hike.
6 mile hike.
5,000 feet in elevation.
Yeah. Carried all these supplies. So the 200 plus runners and their pacers could
and
get
their
water,
own supplies to camp.
To give them that last little push to finish the race. It's a hard thing to do. The volunteers, Coach Jensen said something last night in our meeting that really stuck out. Like he said, they were, going back and seeing the posts of the people that finished and didn't finish, all the athletes and runners. He said, but the ones that touched my heart were the volunteers. Yeah. And I think sometimes they get overlooked. But this specific issue where you are receiving gratitude and thanks for doing something like this, I know that people in early recovery are not used to this. I've heard this in so many ways. I know lots of
people that don't struggle with addiction that struggle with this.
Absolutely. Why do you think that is?
It's a self-esteem thing, and more people than not struggle with self-esteem because they've allowed too many external voices in the world to tell them they're unworthy of A, B, C, D, or they've interpreted messages people have given as that. And then that becomes their inner dialogue.
Yeah.
I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. And so when somebody comes to you and says, oh my gosh, thank you so much for your work or what you've done. No, because I'm not good enough. I can't accept that gift of gratitude.
Yeah.
Which is heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking, and it's very real. I remember specifically this coming very much in my face when I was working as an intern under Gail Seal, who was a mentor of mine, therapist when I worked at the Utah County Division of Substance Abuse. And I remember her giving me some very awesome feedback. And it was some things that she says, hey, I really appreciated the way you did this. You have a natural ability at that. She's like, you are going to be an amazing therapist. And I'm like, oh, well, it's no big deal. And she stopped in her tracks. And she looked at me, she says, what did you say? And I said, oh, it's no big deal. It's just, no, it's okay. Yeah.
No.
And she's like, don't you ever reply to someone who's giving you a compliment with that. And I'm like, oh crap. Because those of you guys that know Gail,
yeah,
she was so confrontational, but just bled love.
Yeah.
And the very first time I ever saw her do therapy, I'm like, I'm turning this woman into Doppel. She is nuts. But afterwards, when these clients approached her and said, thank you so much for telling me straight.
She does it in a straightforward but loving way, or straightforward and strong, and then caring and loving.
Yep. And that is where I learned my own style, was through Gail. And so when she said that to me, I'm thinking, well, isn't that how we're supposed to? And so I said, well, how are you supposed to respond? And she said, just say thank you.
Yep.
And I'm like, holy crap. Well, duh, right?
Yeah.
Just say thank you. And I'm telling you guys, it was one of the hardest things, and so obvious that when the next one came and I just said, hey, thank you. I didn't need to climb up on a soapbox and be like, well, thank you. This is the reason why I chose, It was more just, hey, thank you.
I appreciate it.
I've noticed how much respect that gives the person offering the compliment.
Yeah.
It was one of the most amazing things for me. And I would have never have learned that if she hadn't had gotten kind of like aggressive with the response.
I've done this to many clients, and any of you listeners, I want you to, there's some great homework, is all week for a week. I want you, any compliment somebody gives, to just say thank you. That's it.
You don't need to add anything.
Even tell you how often it's, well, thanks, but, and then they want to downplay and knock themselves down. It was just a good day. And, like, why would you say that? Why, and then it's like, you're getting a positive, loving compliment. And then you go around and kick yourself in the butt.
Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you, but don't do that. It's just thank you.
I've talked about this on the podcast before, when you and I would help out with the school, and I was doing the Watchdog Dads. And, the Watchdog Dads was a little program at my kid's school where you could go in and as a father, if you had some time, to go in and just kind of be the guy who floats around, make sure that no crazy people are coming on with guns or anything.
Elementary schools are so female laden now.
Yeah.
It's to get, some more of that male perspective in
and kind of like be the
awesome.
person that's in there kind of like keeping an eye on things, the guy that doesn't have to have any responsibilities other than just kind of floating in. They give you a little schedule if you want to pop in here.
Good
to this
little mentor for the kids.
I was in one of my kids' classes as they were doing art, and I noticed this kid was drawing this really cool picture, and I feel like I can't remember what it was, but I'm like, man, that's really good. And immediately he looks up and says, well, it's not that great. And I'm like, what? He's like, well, I kind of messed up over here and I messed up doing that. And I'm like, who in the what? At that age, he's already been convinced that he's not supposed to be happy or okay or even proud of what he's created.
Yeah.
And I thought, is this where it starts this young? I think it is. But it kind of blew me away. And so realistically, when Gail kind of called me out, that was it. And so the answer to that question is, how do you accept, compliments, is accept compliments. You don't have to get into a conversation as to why you deserve it or not deserve it. All your responsibility is to say, thank you. I appreciate you noticing, or hey, thanks. I appreciate that. And to leave it at that. I always felt like if I accepted the compliment, I'd have to give a reason why I accepted it. And Gail's
Yeah.
like, just say thank
Just
you.
say thank you.
I
Just
will
take
never
it.
forget that as long as I'm alive, because I was all trying to be humble, and I was proud of what happened. I remember the situation, and I was very proud of what happened because it just felt like it was a turning point for me.
Yeah.
But when I was trying to be like, oh, it's no big deal, she's like, knock it off.
Don't do that.
And I'm
Like-
like, whoa.
We already from the outside world get so many negatives hit into us. And I can't remember where I heard it about, even just with your own kids, like you need to like counteract all the negatives that you say, freaking out or whatever, or people in the world by like twice or three times as many positives. So you get a positive and you're already going to knock it out.
Yeah.
Like you need all the positive. We all need that.
You want to blow someone's mind, you start giving the compliments.
Yeah.
That's even more amazing. So I'm going to start crying right now because last night I was putting together the Patreon playbook,
Mhm.
and I just saw this video come up, and it was a video of this guy who was an older guy and his wife, and they were up at some lookout over some mountain range. And all of a sudden you see this camera get set up and this lady walk over, and then underneath it says, this lady's getting ready to scatter her mother's ashes. And she's like, she's all alone. Her sister couldn't be there, and this is her mother's wish. And the guy and the girl, the one woman next to him, are joking, and they're jovial and they're laughing, and they see her kind of approach. So they give her some space and they move her. They don't know what she's doing. And this woman is she's bawling.
Yeah.
And she dumps these ashes. At the same time, the guy next to her looks over and sees what she's doing. And he walks over to her and he says, are you alone?
Mhm.
I mean, he recognized what she was doing.
Yeah.
And she said, I am. And he's like, who was that? And she's all, it's my mom. And he just grabbed her, this complete stranger,
Aw.
and just said, you are an amazing daughter for fulfilling a wish like that. And he's like, I really wish I could have met your mom.
Aw.
If she wanted this, she must have been an amazing woman. And that lady, this stranger,
awesome.
just grabbed her and just cried.
Sobbed,
And I'm
sure.
like, here I am, like doing this video. I'm like, what is this? I'm like, humanity. Why? Because all the other videos that were playing through, as me and ADHD,
Mhm.
they were all like cop confrontations, and they were like these Karens and all this stuff. And I'm like, what the F, man? And when that one rolled around, I'm like, there it is.
We need more things like
We
that.
need more things like that. We need to stop kind of being like the judge, the jury, and the prison warden.
Yeah.
We need to start seeing things, start giving people compliments for stuff that's amazing, and stop giving attention to all the other garbage, because that's what's going to get us all out of our slumps. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it was cool because it was one of those things where this guy gave a little bit of compassion to somebody in need because he was aware. And, she kept saying that, thank you so much. He's like, he didn't downplay it. He's just like, you must have been an amazing daughter.
That's awesome.
That's compliment enough.
Yeah.
And so the more we can do things like that, and the more we can give compliments, the more able I think we're going to be to receive those without explanation as to why we do or do not deserve it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'll have to show you that video. It's a tearjerker because,
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah.
So I have one last question before, probably for today.
Uh-huh.
That was submitted. What do you do when you have a friend or family member who is really struggling with an addiction, but they don't seem to see it as such and
Mhm.
don't want any help? But you can tell that it's really turned that corner from just drinking to an addiction.
Right. Well, you know what you want to do, which is grab them by the nape of their neck and drag them into whatever meeting or therapy or whatnot. I see, and what I've noticed specifically on Team Addict to Athlete, is that when we ourselves start getting involved in that world, that the invitation becomes, I think, more welcome, because they're like, you're doing this for me. We've seen it. Marissa's talked about this with one of our athletes years ago, whose brother was very much in the addictive world. And she kept seeing us at races and events and approached us. And because of her involvement first, because of her willingness to say, I don't know what this is, but I'm going to start attending and doing this. And the invitation was extended and pushed away, and extended and pushed away.
Yeah.
But because she was involving herself in it and becoming the change, the other person saw that and thought, why? What's going on? I need to, what is
Well,
this?
and it was just a kind and loving way. It wasn't a forceful, you're so messed up and you need to do this and but it was like, hey, I found this group and it's so cool. And yeah, it's for addiction, but they just have positive psychology things and helpful things for anyone and everyone. You should come with me.
Yeah. I think a lot of times too, people are pretty quick to say, this is what you need to do, but will they do it themselves, right? Will they get involved?
Yeah.
If you truly want to invoke change and invite change, you've got to be in it for the long run.
Yeah.
The ones I see that have been
Patient.
most successful are the ones that do it because of, not as a response of. Meaning, like when we started Addict to Athlete, the reason why we started Addict to Athlete was because I was running and doing these things anyway, and I thought, why not bring people along to experience this journey? And because we were doing it anyway, other people came. And so, this is the hard part too, is that we live in these lives where we want people to change, but how much are we willing to change with them? And so my first response when you read that would be, involve yourself first. Get yourself involved. Show them that it's not just you want me to change, but we're all going to change with you. It's the same thing that our friend Kurt and John did when John was struggling and his dad, Kurt was like, we're doing this. And he took him on this service road trip. I don't think they even realized what they were doing.
Yeah.
But he's just like, we're investing this time. And it worked.
Well, when I hear this kind of thing, it reminds me, years ago, I did a lot of equine therapy when we worked together working with youth. And there's a lot of different ways you can utilize it. But some of it is, there's one challenge where you have to get the horse to go through these obstacles without touching the horse as a team.
I remember that.
And everybody, without fail, gets behind the horse, which is the most dangerous place to be, and tries to force the horse.
I'm like standing over the obstacle, like whistling for the horse, kind of like waving the horse to come to me. And the horse is like, whatever, man.
Yeah, whatever. And it always comes down to leading the horse. The people go first, and they build that trusting relationship with the horse, or they get somebody that, there's certain people that those horses really like, and the horse just walks. They just follow them.
And the other one is they brought the obstacle to the horse.
Yes.
I remember one time we were out there doing this, and we had to have this horse step over this log. And there's nothing we could do to get this thing to do this. And then after about an hour and a half, 2 hours, the guy finally got in and says, watch. And he picked up this log, put it in front of the horse, and the horse naturally just stepped over it. And I'm like, dang. So what does that mean?
Lead. Do it in a loving, bring it to them, but you don't stand behind them and push and prod and force. That's how you get the horse to kick you. Yep. And that's what people do as well. If you try to do that pushing and forcing, you will get kicked.
You'll get kicked.
And you usually will end up ruining that relationship.
Yeah. Athletes, I want to thank you for participating. I want to thank Radio Ronin for assisting Addict to Athlete in our mission. Thank you, Radio Ronin. Go check out Ronin TV. Go check out Addict to Athletes podcast, our YouTube videos, all of that kind of stuff. Check out our website. You will not be, led astray with our online recovery resources. Now they are open. When you jump on, you get the welcome videos, you get the content. You'll be receiving about 1 to 2 educational topics a week. You'll be followed that by the weekly coaching, and depending on what tier you choose, all access into Live on Purpose and Dr. Paul. And we are so excited to be launching this and giving this as a resource to you. So jump on addicttoathlete.org for more information. Again, thank you everybody for listening, downloading, sharing, and subscribing to the podcast. And until next time,